this year, we have the 50th anniversary of the creation of biogeometry. Let us look at biogeometry in its role towards our problems of today. You have the global summit, the G20 and things, speaking about global warming as the biggest danger for our future. Unfortunately, global warming, all those conventions and things that they speak only of one aspect, and that is fossil gases, as if this was the biggest problem for humanity, our motor cars, our engines. A Ferrari is not disturbing the atmosphere. It's making my emotions better. The whole thing about gases is more political. It has to do with oil countries and things like that. It's more political. The biggest problem with global warming is the information age that we live in, because the information age depends on electromagnetic radiation. No? And we learned as children in school that any motion like this produces heat. So electromagnetic radiation automatically is producing heat in the atmosphere. But nobody wants to address this problem. So we are moving into everything into electricity, thinking that this will save us from global warming. In reality, we will increase global warming, so it's just a political thing. So let us see what happens when the atmosphere is full of electromagnetic radiation. When the atmosphere heats up a bit, when heat is created,
succede
dehydration
la
happens.
disidratazione.
Life force is in the water. Now, when the aqua gets less, the force of life gets less. And it is not how much water you drink, it is how much your body can use the water. So all living systems are drying up. Look at our skin today. You drink as much water, 10 bottles of water a day, you still have to use a moisturizer on your face because it's drying. And this dryness of living systems means less life force, means less immunity. Less immunity means all the epidemics that are happening to humankind. We have a problem here. The age of information is going to slowly destroy life on Earth because the immunity will go down. Now, let us look at the possibility of a solution. Now, I want to look at the designer, not just as a designer of chairs, tables, or architecture, or houses. So, from the beginning, creation is design. So the designer, his task should expand to
il compito del designer
all aspects of creation. The designer must speak the language of nature. Now, the situation now is problematic. A divine hand, a divine pen, escriva, and nobody reads. Okay, so how can humanity living in nature and we do not understand the language of nature? So now, biogeometry is trying to find a solution to all this. So biogeometry now is working along principles from the natural forming process. So how does the natural forming process work? It works through shapes. The shapes of nature connect to higher forces through centers, and they get life force in and out. All shapes in nature are breathing in and out life force, so they are alive. Now, our problem is we design products, we build cities, we do everything, but the shapes do not interact with life force, so they are not part of nature, they are dead shapes. So we are putting dead shapes, more and more dead shapes, in a living body of the Earth. Ultimately, this will cause a huge problem. We have to put shapes that interact with life force to become part of nature. If you look at all the ancient monuments and temples and all that, build them on a sacred power spot that connects to life force. So they bring the life force in their design by choosing the right place for them. The way they plant a tree, it starts working with the earth. So the idea of interacting with life force has been there with the ancients. Look at what happened in ancient times. People went in the building for healing, for divine communication, for oracles, for whatever, because the buildings were alive. Now, the biogeometry design principles help you create shapes that create their own sacred power spot. Because if you want to build a house today, you buy a piece of land. It is not necessary that you'll find the sacred power spot in every piece of land. So biogeometry gives you the possibility to create your own communication, your own power spot. So with biogeometry, you're creating things that are alive. Now, this communication of life force has many levels. Has vitality, because we call it forza vitale, but it also has the emotional energy, because the human being is an open energy system. Like you take air in and you take it out. So you are part of the environment. You cannot exist alone, even when you live from the sun's energy. We live from the sun's energy. I thought if I go every morning to the balcony and open my mouth to the sun, I don't need to go to the supermarket. I don't need to eat anymore. But it didn't work. Why? I have no organ in my body that can take the sun's energy and give it to me. So if I don't have an organ to get the life force, there is somebody else beside me. In nature, it's the plant. The plant can take the sun's energy, form it to chemical energy. So to get that energy, I eat the plant. And then I get the energy indirect through the plant. So the plant is actually an organ, a biological organ of my body that is placed outside my body. So my body does not begin and end here. The plant is one of my organs, and it's outside. Whatever I do should give life force to me and to the plant. Me and the plant are one. And the science of biogeometry is based on a physics of quality, where the human being is the measure of all things. If the human being is the measure of all things, also the science of biogeometry, the physics of quality, deals with the subtle energy, because l'energia subtile, a life force, are the same thing. So the subtle energy has forza vitale, so it has vital level, it has emotional level,
livelli vitale,
it has mental level and spiritual level, because we are an open energy system. I don't produce anything. I use emotional energy to feel. So I use mental energy to think. The subtle energy, energia subtile, that's in the environment, is alive. It's a universal mind that is living. So when I build any shape with biogeometry principles, I'm interacting with the vitality, emotions, mental and spiritual levels
Interagisco con questi quattro livelli.
Our planet. That's why biogeometry is called biogeometry. The name comes from geo, means earth, metri means measure. And so I thought geometry is not creating geometrical shapes. Geometry related to how the ancient Egyptians measured the earth after every year after the flood of the Nile. They used a rope with 3 knots, 4 knots, and 5 knots to sort of create 90 degrees angle and measure the Earth. So geometry means measuring the Earth, using geometrical shapes, or using the triangles. Okay, now comes the whole idea of biogeometry. Bio is the forces of life. So BioGeometria is the measurement of the life force of the Earth, measuring the life force in nature. So biogeometry shapes interact like that. They integrated in the life force of nature. And they restore the life force that we lost. We developed many shapes for that over the years. In Switzerland, we used geometrical shapes to interact with the background subtle energy to take away the electromagnetic stress from all the mobile antennas, to restore immunity and life force of the human being and the Earth. 60% of medical symptoms were gone. Here you see that is before, and we put all types of medical symptoms together and according to the degree it affects you. It is the severity of the symptom that affects the quality of life. So here you see this is a normal picture of any, let's say, community. Here you have the severe symptom. See how many people have the severe symptoms, and then moderate, mild, and free. So if you look at this, means the quality of life here is very low. Now, we install biogeometry shapes in this area with a lot of electromagnetic radiation, and what happens is this. People free of symptoms rise, and the severe symptoms are low. I can't make all severe symptoms go away, because there are medical problems, lots of medical problems that are not connected to the environment. The medical doctors from the parliament, from the Swiss parliament, calculated, they found 60% of health symptoms were reduced. What does this mean? It means that 60% of our problems are caused by the environment. That is why medicine, modern medicine, cannot find the solution, because they don't know where the cause is. They're looking for the cause in our body when the cause is out there in the environment. So they call them, those diseases, they don't know where the cause is,
Quindi le
they
chiamano
call them
malattie.
chronic diseases. All the things that are chronic, they manage them but cannot cure them. Like high blood pressure you get with time, diabetes, or even cancer, even all those things are environmentally related. Now, these were the results of what we did in Hamburg. No, what I did was just when we lift the stress, you become less aggressive because it takes the stress away. It makes you interact better with your neighbor. We used designs like those you see here. We used them in different forms, like carpets, like chairs, like all different forms of design in workspaces, in companies in Canada, that they had lots of problems between all the workers in there. We were not coming for the problems, we were coming to reduce the electromagnetic stress in the offices. And when we did that, all of a sudden, there was no tension between the people in there. Production went up, the people were interacting together. Now, this is exactly what happens when you use all the products here. It will change the psychology of the people. It will change how they interact together, because it takes away all the inner stress, and you get a clear head. One of the shapes here balances the right brain, the other balances the left brain, creates a harmony between the two brain shapes. Is not just geometrical patterns, new designs that we are offering to the people. No, what we have here is a way of bringing back the life force into a place. I have been supervising doctor's degrees and theses at the university, supervising research on biogeometry for the past 25 years. But in the last, let's say, 6-7 years, a lot of the research went to problems of autism, depression, lack of attention, especially with children. We used to analyze the chemical balance in the brain and find lots of problems there. And biogeometry was used to restore the chemical balance in the brain. And in the past 10 years, we raised the bar of our research so that it includes autism, it includes all those mental problems. So we have lots of research on those shapes in relationship to autistic children, for example. We have 3-dimensional shapes, we have 2-dimensional shapes. What will restore the balance in the brain of an autistic child will surely have a positive effect on all of us, because no one is perfect, you know. What we have here is a collection of products that will restore the life force in any house, not only for hospitals or for things like that. Let's say in a hospital room or intensive care unit, where people are, the immunity is just here, going up and down. If we can push it up with some life force, not only in hospitals, but in our offices, in our homes. The most important place is in the bedroom. I need the life force because when I'm asleep, it's the time that the body regenerates. And this will connect me to the life force, so it will allow me to regenerate properly. When you see here those very impressive designs and all that, you are not aware of the background that went into developing them, or the way they interact with life force. Because today, many people, they just make a shape like that and tell you this is healing, this is, does this, does this, does this. This is far from this. This is a very, very profound, deep physics. And I have a new book coming out in January, explaining all the principles of biogeometry in every detail, putting the science out there. Because my children are telling me, you can't keep everything in your head. They are researching with me all the time, and we're developing the science together. We're working together as a family, enjoying producing something to help humanity. I'll just say the last few words on some principles that we use here. The first shape here basically takes energy and moves it towards those centers. So we want to concentrate the energy in the centers. This is then a much more powerful one. It takes the energy of the center through a special number of rays and angles, 28 of them, that radiate the energy of the center into the environment. Wow. Now, this one, it has special numbers. In biogeometry, we work with living numbers, where every number has full life force. Above that, there are special numbers that reproduce sacred power spots, like 16, 19, 28. Now, we made proportions out of those numbers and created this pattern which uses the quality of numbers to create a power spot. Now, here we have the famous brain shapes. The first time I used those brain shapes, I developed them. A professor, a psychologist, he was showing us how to see with the eyes, right, left, and all that, which part of the brain is working, the intuitive or the calculative. So I drew those two shapes on paper, on the napkin. You just put that on the table, one shape, and it will activate the side. Put it down, put the other one up to activate the other. And he said, how can that be? I said, when I do that, all the right brains in the whole restaurant, we were sitting, will be activated. When I do that, all the left brain will be activated. I think with that, we've introduced all the shapes, and I have to tell you one important thing. Nobody can come and imitate them. You can imitate the looks, but you cannot imitate the effects. And besides all the research we did in Egypt, there was a huge amount of work that we did with Gianni and Frederica here in order to have them that way. We had to change a bit, to test a bit, to do this. A lot of work went into that.